Hey friends, it's me, Bobby B. I'm back. It's been a minute. You're probably listening to this sometime in maybe January, early February. I'm recording this just before Christmas 2024. And the person that I have on today is exceedingly renowned in the family photography world. Her work reminds me a lot of Sally Mann, if you've ever heard of an incredible photographer named Sally Mann. But this woman has a very strong mix of action, grittiness. She's had exhibits all over the world for her family and people portraiture. I've worked really hard to get this person on the other side of my camera, and I'm so stoked that she's finally here. And get this, we have rescheduled since July. This person is very busy, and I've had a super busy year. And then just as I started to open my computer, I had to restart it 4 times because the video wouldn't work, and I was not doing this interview without a video. So despite, against all odds, here we are with the incredible, with the genre redefining family photographer, Nikki Boon. Nikki.
Just trying to, sorry. It is me, believe it or not.
Hello.
Hi.
You did it.
Sorry, I know I'm in my son's room because it's carnage in my house right now, and there's no rooms in our house, it's just one shed. So I'm just
really?
right, that's it. And
Tell me more. You
I mean,
like one room house?
yeah, like we live in a shed, like literally. Like I'm just removing my son's washing. Oh God, he's got the only room, like literally the only room in the house because we built him. Well, it's kind of sounds ridiculous. It was a pump shed, as in like an irrigation pump shed, and we made it into a room because it's literally one room. We lived into a shed. We just put walls and a concrete floor in the shed. Which it's actually really good until you want to do a Zoom call. Because it's echoey, and I've got how many teens at home at the moment? I've got 6 teens in our house at the moment. So 4 of them are ours, and then we've just got extras, and it's just I'm just like I'm getting it.
So where do you go when you get out?
Well, my daughter has an old 1930s caravan, so sometimes I go in there, but right now there's like cockroaches and stuff in there. So
yeah.
I'm in my son's room, which is actually really nice. I'm in here, I'm like, damn, he's got like the best room in the house.
Yeah. Is he the oldest?
No, he's not even.
Why does he get the best room?
I have no idea. I'm just trying to ask myself that myself. I don't know. Yeah.
It seems like you should be living in there, Nikki.
Right?
Do you have 4?
Then, who would they call out to every 2 seconds? Mom! Like, where would yeah.
Mom's not here.
Yeah.
Y'all are teenagers.
Right. Yeah, and they are, and they're really good, and they're really independent, unless you're around, and then they're not because you're around. It's a whole thing.
How have they navigated, or how have you navigated them becoming teenagers? Because you started obviously photographing them when they were little, right? How has that shift worked with them? Like, are you still shooting them, or has it changed how you shoot?
Yes, I still have the camera on them, and actually it's funny that older 2, they love it. They love, I guess it's all they kind of known. So they love it. The younger 2 are, it's funny because I mean, we brought them up to be so free and independent, and now the little buggers are, and so they're hardly ever home. So that's probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah. So do you find that you like so the challenge is that they're not around for you necessarily to be able to photograph how they're living their lives, right?
Yeah, I guess. And then when they are, it's usually just to eat so they can go out again. So yeah, actual. Yeah, I guess that's the challenge. And they don't, it's so the older two are actually like they don't live here anymore. So they do, they're at uni. So both of them are at uni, and so they're not at home the bulk of the year. And then
Mhm.
when they are, it's really good because everyone's together and they've got a really good relationship actually. They all get on really well. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Do they ever bond over how much their mom photographs them?
Not the photography, they could care less about it mostly.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, they don't bond over it. They don't actually know it to be a thing. Like
Yeah.
it's not a thing. They don't. That's just what happens in this house, and they don't
Yeah.
talk about it. They don't look at the photos. They don't. I mean, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that
It's
was my
so
next question. Do they look at it? Like, how do they? It's
no,
just
like
something
that
mom
one
does.
could get. Well, they're. I mean, you remember being a teen? You're kind of like stuck in your own.
Mm-hmm.
You are the center of the universe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Couldn't
they.
give
I
two
mean,
shits what
one
my
day.
mom's doing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure one day they'll. she says. I hope one day. They
We'll have another interview in 10 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sure one day they'll. I don't want them to think about my photos, right? Well, they're not. I don't want them to think about those photos right now because if they were doing that, they wouldn't be out there living their life.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Mm.
very true. Did you, in terms of like how you worked with them, it was just natural because you were always doing it? Or did you find
Yeah.
them responding?
No, no, they didn't. I mean, because I would sometimes go, "Whoa, can you do that again?" And that would be the most that they would know that there was a camera. I mean, they knew there was a camera around, but the most that they it would have ever impacted anything they did. They never did it
Mhm.
anyway. They never actually did. I mean, maybe occasionally, but it was never quite what and it was always out of like, fine, we'll do it for you, and they wouldn't. So yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's so funny because it's not the photography has not been a big thing in their life. I've never made it a big thing. It's never been a big thing for them. So, which is good, which is probably why the photos are the way they are.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I wonder if like was it so you now photograph other families all over the world.
Yeah.
Is there and one of the like challenges that a lot of documentary family photographers have is getting their clients not to respond to the camera because we're so socially conditioned to stop what we're doing, look at the camera, smile. But and even parents are like, look at the camera, smile, on all of that. Do you have to educate them? Like, what's the learning curve like for your clients, or do they get it just because they know who you are?
Yeah, well, there is a significant percentage of the families that I photograph who are photographers' families.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I have a really easy ride in terms of that because they know and their families, it's not a foreign thing to have a camera in their face. But having
Yeah.
said that, there's quite a few families that I have that don't have photography as a mainstay in their house. I think, I mean, you must find this too, right? I think that the real treasure is when you spend a day with a family, it's actually a really long time, and that you
Yeah.
can only play up for the camera for a very small percentage of that if you're going to do it at all.
Yeah.
And it just that's the blessing of spending so long with
Yeah.
a family. I mean,
They
in
just
part
forget
it's
about
because of
us.
that they get used to the camera, but also it's they see you as something by the end of the day, they see you as something other than the photographer, right? You must
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure everybody's experienced that though. So, do you want to share a little bit about what that process is like or why you think that happens?
Yeah, I mean it's one of the reasons that I will really do half day, but most of the time it's a full day and it's a full day. I'll be there the night before and it's the whole day. And that is because that for that very reason, because if you're going to make photos that go beyond the surface, you need to go beyond surface. And the only way that I can do that is by doing the time, by putting the time in.
Mhm.
And I think that families respond in kind to that
Yeah.
because
Yeah, I
it
agree.
becomes something else. Yeah,
I,
it becomes something else because you're not just making photos for 14 hours.
yeah. Yeah.
but the photos that you make are because you've spent the 14 hours, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
you really do become part of the family.
Yeah, you do. Well, you do and you don't. I mean, I guess you do. I mean, some families see it that way. I mean, you're
Yeah.
never going to be part of the family, but you're just super intimate. By the time
Yeah.
you've done breakfast and like the car ride and the tantrums, and it's super intimate.
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
intimate. Yeah.
Do you photograph many teens?
Yep.
Families with teens?
Yeah. They're fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun because I will always, well, actually with most of my families, I'm starting the conversation with what are we going to do on the day. So I don't tour my stuff day in the live session, because I think I think there's enough people that know about those now that see them as a certain thing, like a day in the life of what we do, an ordinary day, which is not really what I'm after. I
Mm.
prefer to I don't have a word for it. I kind of say like you want the photos to scream this is who we are and this is what we do. So that being, this is what we celebrate about what we do. And that can mean different things. I mean, for some families, it is totally, this is what we love to hang out at home and that's fine. But for others, it's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, we're really into like the beach or we're really into the outdoors or this is what we do. We do these things and
Mhm.
it'll become this kind of big day, not an adventure day or anything. It's just whatever it is for that family.
Mhm.
And I can't remember the teens. So that's what I really love about teens, because with teens you can do that all day. You can like go hard all day, which you can't
Yeah.
with little kids. So it's the best. Yeah.
Yeah, they need to have naps, need to have snacks. Teens need snacks though as well.
Oh my word, probably more than 2-year-olds.
What's your in with teens? Do you find
I
that
have
like you have to
4 of
like
them.
break in with them somehow?
Like, well, I have 4 of my own.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think I was just saying this to a friend the other day. I don't think there is anyone who actually knows anything about the psychology of teens, anyone who's an expert, anyone who's written the book, like it, and they, if they do, they're lying, because no book I've read tells me anything about my teens. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of the best way to deal with them, is to not think you've got this in the bag, because you don't.
Yeah. Because they can read you in a heartbeat.
Oh my gosh, they can read you and then they can not read you deliberately.
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah. How
they
were
could be
your
like,
teens? When you
how
see
are
your
they?
kids, how do you recall your teenagerhood?
Oh, my teens?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, that's a bit sticky, really, because I was like every other teen. I was so caught up in my own world, as I recall, doing stupid things and bad things and fun things. But I also lost my mum in my teens. So
Oh.
that made things a bit tricky, but also
Mhm.
not. Like, also surprisingly still self-centered about all of it. But yeah, that just made things a little bit tricky.
Mhm.
But also good in a way, because now I am multiple years older than she ever got to, and the gratefulness I have for being able to see everything that my kids are doing, like it's just tenfold. It's tenfold. It's a
Yeah.
gift.
Yeah. It really is. Does it impact how you as a mom, how you look at your photos, like when you're making them? Does that like permeate your consciousness, or does it like influence how you
I really want to say yes for that, because that would make a really deep and wonderful conversation, but no, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. There's lots of things I think she left me, but that's probably not one of them. And I don't think I realized half of what she left me until probably now at this age.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and it's tricky when you're a teen, because anything preteen, like the memories are quite hazy, because kid
Mhm.
memories are hazy at best times, and then when you're a teen, your memories are even more hazy because you're in a screwed up time. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I don't think I don't think I've photographed any more because I want to hold on to the moments, or any of that stuff, at least not consciously. It was
Mhm.
more of an active than a reflective holding on kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was always more of an act of like, oh my god, this is amazing. Let's see if we can make some art out of this. That kind
Yeah.
of more was like, oh my god, I never want to forget this, and da 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 da.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So it's more from let's make art from this rather than I don't want to forget this.
Yes. Yeah,
Do you
I know,
think
and
that
it's not like it. as a mama, it probably should be more or less, I don't want to lose this, but I'm just always moving forward, always moving forward. So it's almost like, oh, and what can we do now? What can we do now? And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
it's a difficult.
it's interesting how society makes us think how we should feel about our families and our memories and our kids, because no, like why not embrace what's happening next? Like that's why you're there. Like you're there fully
Right,
present. You're moving on to the
right.
next thing. Why should we feel guilty if we're not like nostalgic, or we're not like doing this for the sake of like holding on to something that we can hold on to, rather than celebrating it with something that
Yeah,
we can hold on
exactly.
to.
Society's got a lot to, like, there's so many things, like even in my photography world, about how, do you know, my kids taught me probably more about that than anything, about how there's so much stuff, when you first start photography, about what society's saying you should,
Yeah.
it's where all the sentimental and the nice kind of gooey or stuff comes from. This is what you want to hold on to forever. And like, I totally fed into that, but it was like, actually, that doesn't have to be that way,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to do it that way, and you don't have to make cute, serene pictures of your kids, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to feel like you want to hold on to that forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to be in it. I know, like for me, that's why I'm a photographer, is because I want to be in it. When I'm photographing
Exactly.
something, I feel fully present. It's not
Exactly.
because like, oh, this moment is like passing and I want to go hide in my corner and like and reflect on it later. It's like, no, this is allowing me to kind of like be part of it.
Exactly. I mean, I think that was where it was at for me. And photography allowed me to be in it, to be right in it.
Yeah.
Not that I couldn't be without it, but
Yeah.
I was deeper in it when I was with it. So yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
permission.
Yeah. And it gives you that, I think it gives you that, for me, the best photos came from when I was giving what was happening, like my profound attention. Like it was
Yeah.
just so in it, everything. Like I was 150% present, 150% in it. Um, and like almost to the point where you're not worried about the outcome as much as being in it. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, and that's the other thing I think the kids taught me, because when they are like in it, like in that mud, or they're in that whatever it is that they're doing in the river, doing that stuff, like they could care less about the outcome. Like they don't give a shit about what happens to the sandcastle or what happens to the end of the game that they're playing. Like they're just so in it, and that them teaching, it's like a surrender, right? Like it's a surrender to that,
Mm-hmm.
to that. And fuck, what a God gift it is in your art to be able to surrender to being in it, and to let go of whatever the outcome is, and whatever everyone's going to think about the outcome, or where the outcome's going to go, or how it's going to be received. Like such a
Yeah.
gift. Yeah. And that, and travel's done that. I am obsessed with travel for that
Yeah.
reason, because you
The
have to surrender.
surrender.
You
Yeah.
cannot control, you can't control the outcome. You can't even control the next minute. You don't know what that flight's going to do. You don't know what's going to
I
happen walking
know.
down the street, or what that Uber driver is going to be like. And it's so intoxicating. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why I think I make better photos when I travel than any other time, or when
Yeah.
I'm out of my own environment, because
Surrender.
the surrender. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I just got back from a big trip. I was in Portugal for a couple of weeks and I was in Kenya for a couple of weeks. And
Nice.
that's what I came home thinking, was that surrender. Like you,
Mhm.
some people get really anxious about traveling. And I found that everything just melted away because I have no control. It's the
Exactly.
illusion of control that gives us anxiety. Like we think that by being anxious about it, we can somehow control it. But yeah, I'm going to be in
Exactly.
this plane for the next 10 hours. There's like a
Right.
freedom in that, even though you're confined in this steel tube flying through the air, you are,
Yeah.
you're total surrender. Like I don't get to choose anything, like except maybe vegetarian or chicken. Like I'm not sure. That's about it.
For sure. But isn't it amazing? Like I think the best pictures I ever made was when I surrendered to that. Like just like exited any control or any thought over what I might want to make out of this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just let all of that go. And it still happens when I'm with a family. It's such an interesting process when you're with a family, because you kind of like walk this line a little bit. It's like a dance, because you can surrender to what you don't know, but you also, families, right? Because you've seen enough of them. And it's a really interesting kind of almost like a tension that exists that you can kind of play with, which I really, really love.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Tell us more. Tell us more about that tension.
Yeah, I mean, because you're doing the surrender because you don't know, and I ask, like I said, I don't need to know what you're going to do. I don't need to know where you're going to go. I don't need to know any of that. So that gives me that part of that intoxicating, unknown,
Like,
which means I have to surrender to
yeah.
that. And but within that, you're also like, but I know enough about family to really know when there's like an emotion, or when there's a love, or when there's a connection, or yeah. And I guess there's actually, even if you go even more into that, like there's also like that chaos and that unknown. And then
Mhm.
there's also the stuff that you do know when you come in with, like, that you have to know. And it's that really cool kind of almost duality, I guess, tension thing. Like, you have to know what my camera does, what it can do, what the lens can do, how, like that stuff is like concrete. It has to be
Mhm.
concrete, because otherwise you're not going to be able to deal with that stuff. But if you
Yeah.
have that stuff concrete, then it's Disneyland.
Yeah, it's just flow.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's camera and it's composition, and it's even more than that. It's like, what you like, what you're attracted to, and
Mhm.
and what makes you feel, and what you are drawn to. And that's not necessarily like what you like in a picture, but it's actually what makes you excited.
Mhm.
And then that stuff, with the surrender and the chaos and the unknown, that's the dance. That's the really good stuff, I think.
Yeah. Like your intuition as to
I
what
guess.
you're going to
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah, because you've put the time in beforehand, right? You've done your hours, and then you can go on instinct. You
Yeah.
can go on gut. But I don't think it works so well if you don't have that really concrete stuff.
Mhm. When you started your career, had you been photographing before you started photographing your children?
Did I? So I'm a physio by trade, a physiotherapist.
Mhm.
So I traveled for about 4 years, and when I traveled, I did a darkroom course, and that's where I got into my photography. And then I was doing it just out of interest, like
Mhm.
all the time. So, and that was great when I was traveling, because there's access to a darkroom. And then I stopped, and then I started again. So I guess that I was a little bit. So I kind of honed in some stuff. But
Mhm.
it's not just photography. Like, you don't even have to have a camera in hand to know that you are diving into art in a
Mhm.
way. Like, it's the movies and like, and all that stuff that you don't really string lines between. I was like, yeah, I was always into those movies, or I was always looking at those books, or these were always the novels that I was reading. And then you start to like string it all together, and you're like, right, yeah. So it's not even about the photography, I think, to start with, which is cool.
Yeah. How did you distill it into photography then? Like that
Well,
appreciation of art, of story, of composition, like those
I
those
think
things would
it
have been in
came,
all those elements.
yeah, I think you kind of just do the time looking into all that stuff. But I think it started by picking up the camera, and then by like, everybody starts with, I want to make that photo, of the close up of the eyelashes, or whatever you're doing, like off the internet. And then you slowly do more and more, and you're like, actually, I'm really interested in that. And then you kind of reflect back and go, oh, well, that makes sense, because of course I was always doing, like, it's almost a
Yeah.
retrospective thing, rather than really intentionally going, well, I like this novel, so therefore I must like these photos. Like, it doesn't
Yeah,
kind of,
totally.
yeah.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned this, because this is something that I try to do in with this podcast, is chatting with people about moments in their lives where they had a realization that they could recognize in hindsight, like kind of like what we're just talking about right now.
Right.
Like, it came out for you, it was
Mhm.
photography. Um,
Mm.
but then because our learning curves, especially when we're learning about ourselves and our own, like, our insecurities and our talents and our where how we've been taught something is maybe not serving us as adults, like how those things all play into our art, and then our
Mm,
ability to convert our art into a living. um
mm,
so I like to find out from people who are doing well, who seem to be like successful in what however they define their success, looking back at like moments or chapters or seasons in their life, or like a simple like epiphany at some point where that really shifted, where they're like, yeah, this is how I'm going to live my life, this is what I'm doing, or this is what this means. Because most of us
mm,
can't see it until we look at it in hindsight, but I feel like if we listen to enough other people's stories, we will be able to feel it when we're in it. And so people listening can be like, oh, I'm in that right now. And then be able to ask themselves the questions that can get them to that next level, possibly faster, maybe more efficient, maybe with more insight. Um, because like that's the power of story, right? If we can hear someone else's story, we can
mm,
compare where we are, and then it's like it's like you're opening more doors to what's available to you rather than being stuck in your own path and not understanding where you're necessarily going. But if you can like look over and you can see, oh, that person's on that path, we're doing something similar, I
mm,
wonder what it's like if I take on some of the skills that they're doing, or um interact with people in the way that they are interacting with them, you know?
mm,
Like what can I learn from other stories in order to influence
mm.
mine? So I guess my that's just an observation, but my question to you, Nikki, is like, when in your life have you had a significant moment where you looked back and you're like, okay, here I am, this is what's happening, this is my life now? Or have there been any times like that? Have you had any kind of monumental or glacial shifts that redirected your trajectory?
I can't. It would make for such a good story if I did, but I really don't.
A lot of us don't though, right? Like, because we
No,
expect them
I
to come in like
don't.
these big epiphanies, and they
Yeah.
usually don't. Usually it's
No.
years of work where you look back and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, wait a
No,
minute.
I can honestly categorically say that it's actually all of it's come from doing the shit, basically. All of it's come from doing the work. I
Yeah.
can say it because anything like there's definitely been like, there's been moments, but none of it has been epiphany as much as I
Mm-hmm.
was desperate for it to be an epiphanies. Like I
I
just
know they seem so
it was
easy.
so amazing. I know. And people are like, it's funny how people work because sometimes people put the epiphanies on you
Yeah.
and you say things like, oh, yeah, my mum died when I was a teen. Oh, that must be da 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 da. And you're like, no, actually, no. Yeah. But it sounds good. And I could write that and it would sound really good, but it wouldn't be a lie. So yeah, I just think there's been like lots of little things and lots of them the mostly actually a significant amount of them have been from the that I've learned from the kids. And
Mm-hmm.
most of it is from what we were talking about at the beginning, just like paying a huge amount of attention and staying open and just staying open to not just like making photos or the funny things that they say, but just staying open to always reflecting back to you what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so insightful. Like, so, and I'm not a particularly reflective person. Like, I'm just like, I'm kind of like a bulldozer. I just keep going forward and forward and forward. But every now and then, that's where the photography's been really good because I've actually had to stop and
Mm-hmm.
edit the pictures, which enforces some sort of reflection. And then when somebody asks you to write about your work, which hurts so bad,
Oh
um,
yeah.
oh my god, it hurts so bad. But that's where the growth comes, right, from the pain.
It's
Like
true.
editing pictures and doing the shit that's really hard. Um, that stuff's come from that for sure, but none of it has been an epiphany.
Yeah.
But there's like little things like that. You know, like little things, like I'm just trying to think of some. Like I have learned from the kids, you know, kids will do things over and over and over. And
Yes.
that, and you know the old adage, there's power in repetition. So
Hmm.
kind of that sort of stuff, but also like when I first began doing photos, I was always like, oh, I've done that lots. I have to do something different. Or I've done black and white. I now have to do color. Like I have to keep making more things and different things and more things and different things. But there's some like real gentle and slow realization that actually I don't, there's some real effectiveness and power in doing the same thing. And I remember reading about, and it was an article and talking about directors of movies, really well-known directors who have done the same thing over and over. And that, like reading that, and I was like, oh my God, they're totally right. Like Wes Anderson, like his stuff
Hmm.
is the same, and we
Yeah.
love it and we
And
lap it
that's what
up
we
every
love him
time,
for.
right? And
Yeah.
then, and not only is it the same idea and compositionally and in color tone, but it uses the same actors.
Yeah.
And who are, oh my gosh, there's so many I can't even think of. Like the Coen brothers, they use similar
Hmm.
actors in all their movies. It's the same
Yeah.
kind of idea that they work with, and every movie they bring out, we're like, yes, bring it. That was amazing. There's so much similarity in it. And it was that kind of realization that I was like, oh, I don't have to do anything other than black and white if that's what I really love. And then I can actually hone in on the compositions that I like and do more of it and do more of it. And what they do with the movies is they just get more and more nuanced, and it's just better and better. And I was like, and that's what the kids do, you know, like they do the same thing over and over, and they just get better at it, or they diverge within it, but they're still in it. You know, like one of my
Hmm.
kids was really into woodwork stuff, and he just got better and better, but it was the same woodwork. It just got better. So there's been like little things like that.
Hmm.
And what we were talking about earlier, and things like the real buzz of it all is being curious and um always being curious, and the
Hmm.
kids teaching me to kind not just to slow down, but to just, I guess they're doing nothing, is that kind of pausing and reflecting, and how that correlates to art. And that, because I didn't really clue on to that until I was editing pictures, and then realizing that if you get a good picture, and I'm sure you know this too, if you get a good picture, it's like, oh, like it kind of like, whoa, that really hit me. And that's what art is, that it is
Hmm.
that pause. And if you've got a really good picture, it's because it's made you draw in your breath, or it's made you pause, or it's made you think. And that was the stuff that the kids were doing. And I was like, oh, that's what art is. Like these kids were like stopping and really feeling things and sensing things, and like feeling things with their body when it looked like they were doing nothing, but they were actually doing all that. And that is what art can do. Like as adults, we forget how to do all that stuff, but
Yeah.
art can remind you of all of that. It can remind you how to feel something. It can remind you how to slow down. It can remind you, just like, I don't know. So that I'm just rambling now, but just those are the little things that have come about, rather than any epiphanies, I guess.
Yeah, you're not rambling at all. Those sound profound. Like the practice
Yeah.
of doing it and committing to it and doing it and like seeing it through to whatever
Yeah,
whatever that comes
exactly.
out as.
That's exactly the thing. It's like just doing it and doing it and doing it and seeing it through. And if there is an end to it, great. And if there isn't, just keep going. Like it'll lead to something, it'll lead somewhere. But it's like, it sounds really cliche, but it is that process. And it's not to say you don't have to ever worry about an outcome, but that's not where it's at. Where it's at is actually the process, as cliche as it sounds.
Yes. I'm just writing some of this down. Because we're so outcome focused, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the surrender. It's so that would be probably one of the most biggest, if there was anything close to an epiphany, it would be that. And my kids have taught me that, and then I've just riffed on that surrender. And you just
Hmm.
bring it into, so I mean, it's like the best parenting comes out of surrendering. Always.
Yeah.
For me, it's the best times of parenting has been when you just surrendered to it and just, I mean, it's probably why they're all feral too, but it's good for my sanity anyway.
I wonder, like, has it impacted? So when you're in the moment with them and you're seeing it through, were there ever times where you're like, I don't know how to phrase this, but where you're like, you weren't their parent? You know, like was there ever like a tension between you as a parent, like trying to guide them, or like for their safety, or like being in it because you're experiencing that surrender and curiosity with them?
I think there were times when I wished I wasn't their parents. There's those. But I think that because I think it's part of it, right? Because I don't think I could ever be in a place. It's the end and both, I think. It's the end. Yeah, it's the end. So you can be a parent and be the photographer, but I couldn't be both at the same time. If that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So I
Yes,
mean,
that
I
makes
had to,
perfect sense.
yeah,
Sorry, what?
I had to surrender to that. And I did that. Oh my God, it's so nice to not, to like, to step into the, I'm not their parent right now, huh, and everything just flies away. It's great.
Yeah.
But I'm a human. If they start drowning, for sure, I would be in there. But yeah, it's so much nicer to be able to surrender to that, because so much of your life as a parent is being a parent, because you
Yeah.
got it, right? You've got to. And
Mm-hmm.
then if I could step away in those moments and not be the parent, oh, it's just sanity. It's sanity.
Mm-hmm.
Insanity and sanity at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I
Do
think I
you
needed
think,
it.
yeah,
The photos,
yeah,
that their photos were my therapy. Like,
I totally agree. I think for a lot of
yeah,
us, we get into it because it's some form of therapy, you know?
I think,
For me, it's digestion. It
huh,
really helps me to like safely digest my emotions. Yeah,
nice.
because I'm not experiencing the emotion. I'm part of it. I'm in it, but it's not mine.
Oh my God, that's so insightful.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near that deep.
It took me a lot of like digestion and figuring out like why do I love this so much? Like why do yeah, and then I just sort of figured it out. That's what calls to me about it.
So cool. That's so
Mhm.
cool. No, I'm not that deep.
I think you are, just in a different way.
Maybe.
So if you
Maybe.
were like in if you're in it if you're in it mode, was there someone else around that could sort of monitor for
No,
like
I'm now you're making me think. I'm like, oh god, no wonder they're feral. One of them in particular is insane. And I'm putting her out in the world. Actually, she's traveling to the States for 6 months next year. She's got an exchange with a university. She's going to Virginia Tech, and I'm thinking, God, how oh well, America, here she comes. Yeah.
yeah, watch out.
Yeah. No, it's cool. That's cool. They kids are cool. They're just so cool. They give you heaps of, well, they give you heaps of complexes, and make you think you're crap at everything, but they equally make you, um I don't know, I'm just trying to think of the best. They give you confidence. They're such an interesting mix, kids, because they make it look like they don't give a damn about anything, and that's how they do everything. They don't care what you think. They don't care about anything, but at the same time, they care very deeply
Yeah, I
about
was
everything.
gonna say, and yet they really, really do, right?
Right?
Yeah.
I love I love trying to, no, I don't try to capture that, but I love feeding, like, I don't know, drawing that out through pictures. And it's not an intentional thing, but when you see it, I think that's what really grabs me when I see it, because
Hmm.
it's so fascinating that way.
Hmm.
And they can make you feel like crap, and at the same time, they can make you feel so empowered.
Hmm.
It's they're Yeah, they're powerful little things. Yeah. I mean, it's so like that whole surrendering and not, they taught me, no, they didn't teach me, but they gave me the insight into how to actually let go of the shoulds.
Hmm.
Um, all kids are like this, but my kids in particular, because they just didn't have that, you know, like at school, we should be doing this, we should be doing that, my friends are doing this. Like we were isolated for so long that they didn't have any of that, and they really did not. You know, they didn't have to worry about any of that, and it's so enlightening as an adult to be exposed to that and to feed into that. And just like little things, like people would always say, oh, your kids are going to be so disappointed that their pictures aren't in color and that they're always black and white, and that they would be like, firstly, I didn't really care what the kids thought of the pictures, but at the same time, I was like, oh, am I doing this wrong? Like, you know, the stupid things you think as adults.
Yeah.
I actually, I felt that for so long about that, but I couldn't make them in color. It was never like what I do. And now I'm like, actually, I still don't know what it is about black and white. I mean, I've got some ideas about what it is about black and white, but now I'm just like, it's what I do. It's how it is. They're not getting a lesser than picture because it's black and white. In fact, they might be getting a more than picture for all I know. So yeah,
How
just
do you
little
think
things.
how do you think you came to that? Because that's a tough one
The
for
black,
people, like, because that's like people pleasing a little bit. You're like, oh, other people like it in color, that means I should maybe do it in color, and then we start waffling and like it affects our
I
art and
think
blah blah blah.
you get a bit lost, right? You get a bit lost because you've kind of flounder a little bit, like you were just saying, because and then what are you doing? You don't know what you do, and none of it's intentional anymore. How did I come to doing just black and white, or how did I come to be all right with just doing black and white?
Both.
I learned well, I kind of tried to figure out why I was so drawn to black and white, and that kind of helped. And for me, I think the whole nature of photography is like an abstract concept, because time is so fast and it speeds and it never stops and it's just whirring all the time. But we freeze it in 1/500th of a second, right? That is abstract as all hell. But then I feel like with black and white, you're just like jumping another level, because now we don't live in black and white, we live in color. So the minute I freeze 1/500th of a second and make it black and white, like that's just a whole other way to see a world. And that was for me, like when I was editing the kids' pictures, I was able to see my life through a different lens. Excuse the pun, but yeah, through a different lens. And black and white allowed me to do that and some. So that was, and I just got really confused with color, because I started like doing this whole like, is that the right color? I don't like this color. I don't like that. And then the color it started becoming about the color. I was like, whoa, this is not, for me, it was never what it was about. And I love that you can strip that right back and make it, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know, because I am lucky enough to have all my five senses, but you strip away one thing and everything else gets more elevated or more intensified. And I really wanted that stuff intensified. So I was just like, for me, the color was a distraction. So I was like intensifying either the composition or the texture or the emotion or all the other things that were going on in the picture. Yeah, like the mood and especially the light and the textures. And color was a bit of a distraction for me. So, and plus, like, if I think back to everything that I was drawn to in terms of movies and other photographers that I was influenced by, like it was all black and white. So I guess there's, and it's a creative restraint. So if you're going to think about the minute you strip something away from what your tools or what you've got available, then you have to get more creative within that realm. So I guess there was that too. Yeah.
I totally agree. I find color, like you said, I think it's a distraction. And it evokes its own emotional responses in us, right? Like green kind of
Yes.
has its own feeling, blue has a feeling, yellow has a feeling. And so if that's not what the photo's about or what you were experiencing, black and white gets rid of that. You know, we can really distill
Exactly.
it down into whatever the main thrust of the images that you're making.
Yeah. And I'm really drawn to like the dark. Like I'm really like everything I watch, everything I read, it's got a dark element to it. And it's really tricky to get gritty and kind of macabre when you've got like these brilliant yellows and greens and pinks and things. Like
Totally.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
think it's simple. Like I love that the duality of photography being both complex and simple. It's
Hmm.
both. It's both. And
Hmm.
I think black and white helps with that too.
Yeah, I agree. Simplifies it and makes it quite timeless as well. Take out the color, and there's just it's immediately you're talking about time, like 1/500th of a second.
Yeah.
Take out the color, you're also taking out whatever decade it's in. Like it's
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's something cool about color that it brings that back in. But
Hmm.
if it's not what you're after in a picture, then just take it out. Yeah.
Get rid of it.
Yeah.
Are you have there's this is maybe a bit metaphorical, but um as you were honing your perspective and what you wanted out of a photograph, um were you like growing alongside your kids? Like you've talked about how your kids have taught you so much. Have they taught you um like how to be a better artist in terms of like what am I trying to say? In terms of how you've learned how to photograph them, what influenced
Mhm.
you? How did you figure that out? Like, are you someone who just knows what you like? Um, did people tell you that they thought you should do stuff or not do stuff?
Yeah, I'm not actually very good at listening to other people. Ask my husband. So I don't think I've really mattered too much to like I think you're always influenced to a point, but I'm not a people pleaser by nature.
Mm-hmm.
And never really given too much of a crap about what other people think. So that's probably worked to my advantage. But they've heightened it. I will say my kids have heightened that. And
Which
I'm
part?
not,
They've
they're not
heightened.
caring about what
Oh,
people
okay.
think.
Yeah.
Um, and it just gets more when you get older. But I think I've never been afraid of showing people the reality of who they are. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what I still love to do. And so I can't remember your question, sorry.
How them growing, how you honed your skill while they were growing. Like, if are there things that you learned specifically through them
Oh
about
yeah,
your skills?
I think I think what I've learned as they've grown has been more of those abstract concepts that have filtered into the photos, but not directly. So I don't think there's been anything that has like directly played into the pictures as much as it's just been a slow bleed of things that have filtered through.
Mm-hmm.
Like the um oh my gosh, like so many little things, like all the things we just talked about, like the not the process, and like it's been more abstract concepts.
Mm-hmm.
um I think yeah, I'm just trying to think of some more to give an example. One of the things, so I've got a couple of, well, one in particular of my kids that there's a couple of my kids that need more lifting up. Like they don't have that natural confidence. And there's one that really needs to be thumped down constantly because she's got some. And not that I think that sounds terrible, but we're just like, oh, just like, and it's nice because it's easier to like, whoa, just let's down the volume a little bit, than it is to try and lift. But one of the things that well, one of the things they've all taught me actually has been that we're not the center of the universe, and that all of us, with whatever it is that we're doing, are standing on the shoulders of others. And it's something I'm only bringing it up because I'm just thinking of her at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's a really nice realization in terms of art to realize that your photos aren't the God-given and most amazing photos. It doesn't matter how many followers you've got or how many people are like obsessing over your work, that actually you're only there because of everyone that came before you, and that
Mm-hmm.
you're just laying a brick in that wall that every other artist is laying down. And if you're like lucky enough, somebody will use your brick to climb up to the next brick. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a very humbling concept that I think is really important as well.
Mhm.
And they've also made me realize that the pictures that I make are not mine. That
Mhm.
they don't belong to me. I don't own them.
Mhm.
And therefore any ego around them just dissipates, right? That they're theirs. Or if I put them out into the world, they're the world's, right? And it just goes back to that whole surrendering thing. Like once you've got it out there, it's out of your control. Whatever happens to it, or whatever they're thought about, or whatever anyone else says about them,
Mhm.
um, it's very good for the ego to have that. This is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
think at the
Yeah,
moment.
I think that's a really cool concept, thinking about it as not being yours.
Not, yeah,
Just
it's very
we take
freeing.
so many of us take we're so personal about it, right? And we take things personally.
Exactly. I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, if someone doesn't like their photo, therefore they don't like me, and therefore I'm not worthy. Like it just like spirals down into this self-worth and shame that like, whoa, 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 how did we get here?
Yeah.
I just took a
How?
picture. Like I
Yeah.
just made a picture.
Or
So
vice versa. I've made this amazing picture and everyone thinks I'm amazing,
yeah,
like which is fine. You go for gold, but
yeah,
I just then where's your energy going? Like maybe I would rather put that into the next picture. If you just let that go, and not yours, that picture. It's been such, yeah. It's a combination of just realizing that you're one tiny little brick in this wall, and that your job, I believe, is to uh, better the art, is to
yeah,
improve the craft for the
yeah,
next person and the next person and the next person. And it doesn't mean you have to teach. I think part of it is putting it out there and for anyone to do whatever they wish with it.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, I had an issue a few years ago with a photographer who said I copied their work, and it kind of set me in this nasty spiral. I mean, part of it was just at myself, but most of it was just about what the hell is this art world? Like, what is this art world if this is what we're spending our energy doing, right? And then I was like, it was that made me really think about, hang on a minute, that is exactly what is supposed to happen here. I mean, you look at any art, filmmakers are using other filmmakers, and painters are working off other painters, and
yeah,
musicians are using other musicians' work. It is
yeah,
that is the way it's supposed to go. That is
yeah,
the way it's supposed to work. And if we just let go of that little whatever it is that we're carrying and let that be part of the process, then yeah, it's very, yeah. Anyway, it's so there's little things like that that I'm just like trying to think it's filtering through. So
that
they
is
haven't,
so freeing. Well,
yeah.
when I in the intro that I recorded it just before you got on, when I first saw your work, it reminded me of Sally Mann's work. But
Oh
this is
wow.
just like, this is a really nice, using this metaphor of the brick wall. Like, yeah, that's something that maybe reminds people of that. And then you put yours in, and yours is with Nikki's flavor, and it's slightly twisted, or it's gritty, or whatever, like whatever other qualities it has. And then
Mhm.
all of us who have seen your work and are influenced by your work, we are building on that. It's so much more inspiring and motivating than you're copying me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like just and both is right, both is true. You are, and this
And
is also the way it's meant to go. So
yeah.
yes, but so not yes, but yes and. So
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's good. It's really good. It was interesting actually. The photographer that said I had copied him also laid claim to that. He said that's never happened. I've never used any other photographer to influence my work. And I was like, well, I feel really sad for you because my
Yeah.
God, some incredible
Yeah.
photographers out there, and maybe your work would be some other kind of level if you did.
Yeah. I hope you said that to them.
Ah, man, I said a lot of things. Um, yeah, but it's so. I mean, I would love for we just got like so many giants out there, and we're standing on all their shoulders, and I'm just grateful for that. Like so many brilliant artists out there, and so
Mm-hmm.
many now, and you can just imagine like in 50 years time they will have all grown from our art too, which is beautiful. It's beautiful
Yeah.
because we really want this art to flourish and to be something really special, and if we all put our time into that, then it will be.
Yeah. What a beautiful sentiment to end this interview on, this conversation. Yeah, I love that, Nikki. Thank you for sharing your art.
Oh, thank you for being you. Your podcast is amazing, by the way. I
Thank
am
you.
so ashamed. I didn't know it was out there, and I just binged on it. It's so good. Thank you for being.
And that, my friends, was the most wonderful Nikki Boon, family photographer extraordinaire, redefining the genre of documentary family photography. Um, she is going to be publishing a book. We were chatting with this after I turned off the recording, and that book is going to come out in the next year or so. So if you're not following her on Instagram already, her handle is Niki Boon Photo, and she's going to have a Kickstarter when that is available. So I'm stoked for that. I hope you're stoked for that too. And something else that I'm stoked about before I let you go is coming in early February is my group mentorship program, Storytellers School 2025. I am looking for 6 enthusiastic, documentary interested photographers. You don't have to be a documentary photographer. You just have to be interested in including some of those skills in your arsenal. This is for people who are looking to shake things up in their work, people who want to break up with perfection, people who want to truly discover what it is that they bring to the world and how to mold that into a brand, an outstanding brand that people will identify with and really want to hire you for you being you. And I think this is really a beautiful time to mention this because so much of Nikki's work is about her being her. And I am going to die on this hill trying to help all of you embrace who you are, because who you are is a gift to this world. You are the way you are because somebody needs you. Lots of people need you, and you can do that through your art. And that's what Storyteller School is all about, is helping you find out what makes you you, what has created your innate perspective, and how to build an outstanding brand, how to build a sustainable business, and how to market that so that your clients can find you. So we talk a ton about marketing. We talk a ton about your portfolio. We improve your photography skills. We rebuild your website from the ground up, and we start that. We build the foundation of that based on who you are. We figure out what makes you tick, why you tick, and how that's going to help other people. So if you are remotely intrigued with that, you can click the link in the show notes, and that will help you book a little chat with me, and we can talk about whether or not Storyteller School is right for you. So this is happening up until the 1st or 2nd week of February. So if you're listening after that, Storyteller School is already underway, but you are still welcome to book a chat with me if you want. I'm always willing and excited to talk with people. But if you're listening in February, you have time to book a chat with me, or just hop on the wait list and I will be in touch with you. All right. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a beautiful day. You've been listening to the Tilt and Shift Photography Business Podcast. I hope this conversation or these coaching tips have brought you a little tilt, maybe a little shift in your mindset, in how you look at your business, in how you think about your art, and how you show up in your life. Thank you for being here today, and we will talk at our next episode.